Well, by now you have most likely seen the video. An Indiana police officer smashing a window and then tasing a man and pulling him out of the car, all in front of two young children in the back seat. The family is now suing the officer for excessive force. Susan Candiotti reports that this officer has been sued before.
Yolanda, have you seen that video?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, it just brings back memories.
Yolanda Gray does more than cringe seeing this video of police smashing in a car window after a couple is stopped for not wearing seatbelts. It shows Hammond, Indiana police using a stun gun on passenger Jamal Jones after he refuses to get out of his girlfriend's car during a 13-minute standoff. Two children are in the back seat. Yolanda Gray recognizes the officer shattering the window.
That's the guy, the same one that tackled me, the one that bust the glass open. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness, the baby's crying. I heard my baby crying. She was standing in the street.
In 2006, Gray and her family were pulled out of their car moments after leaving their driveway. No one told them why. Police ordered her husband to get out of the car. He complied. This is where it happened.
This is exactly where it happened. They asked me to get out the car. I get out of the car with my hands up, and the one that tackled me came from this side of the street, and as I was almost where I needed to be, he tackled me. I never saw him coming.
Gray says she was bruised and manhandled after being put down on the street. According to court papers, police say she refused to get out of the car and when she did, started running before police tackled her.
My eldest son jumps out of the car screaming, "That's my mom, that's my mom." He was put into a chokehold and a gun put on his head.
And your other son?
My other son was taken out of the car and he was handcuffed.
And your daughter?
My daughter, no one attended to the baby.
Turns out, she and her lawyer say, it was a case of mistaken identity, that police were allegedly looking for a man who she says looked nothing like her husband. Yet Gray's husband was charged with disorderly conduct, and they were both also charged with resisting an officer. She says she declined a plea offer before trial.
They said they would give us one last chance if we would just write a letter of apology. They would drop all of the charges.
And you said?
Absolutely not.
The couple was acquitted and sued the same officer, two others, and the city on a civil rights claim. They settled out of court. So when she heard and saw the glass-shattering incident a few weeks ago, it hit home.
What kind of memories does this bring back to you?
Oh, the most horrific memories. My kids' innocence were taken that day.
A lot of people are asking, why didn't the man just get out of the car and get out of the car? It might have ended the whole thing.
I am enraged every time someone makes that comment because they have no idea. And we did everything that they asked, but the moment that we got out, that was when the horrific harassment started.
CNN has been unable to reach the police department for comment on the 2006 case. The officer who Gray says tackled her, coincidentally, the same one seen breaking the glass in this separate incident, also could not be reached. In a statement issued this week, police said the window was broken because officers were concerned for their safety after the passenger reached for a backpack in the rear seat and refused lawful orders to get out of the car. Susan Candiotti, CNN, Hammond, Indiana.
Well, after watching that video, it'll be very difficult to get out of any car when a police officer asks you. I want to bring in our legal guys. Avery Friedman, a civil rights attorney and law professor, is in Cleveland. Richard Herman, a New York criminal defense attorney and law professor, joins us from Las Vegas. So, Avery, let me ask you, the most recent case, there are two sides. The officer says Jones did not get out of the car when ordered, that he reached into the back seat. But was this excessive force in your eyes, the way he used that device to shatter the window and then he tased him in front of children?
Well, remember also that Deb, this is a seatbelt stop. And the reality is that it's clearly excessive force. One of the standards is, does the behavior shock the conscience of the reasonable person? Of course it does. The second issue is proportionality. This is a seatbelt stop. And again, this wasn't instantaneous. It was 13 minutes. And I have to tell you something. If Linda Mahone and Jamal Jones wouldn't have filed this case on their own, I would have hitchhiked to Hammond, Indiana, to bring this suit. I mean, it is really objectively outrageous, and the case is going to wind up going to a federal jury.
And you look at the video, that is being filmed by a child in the back seat. And Richard, you know, what's fascinating also about this is that the woman, Lisa, was actually on the phone with the police department saying, I am afraid, I don't want to get out of the car, here's what's going on. So why didn't anybody intercede? And also, did this police officer even have the right to ask a passenger for his identification if this was a seatbelt stop?
Well, that's the thing here. I mean, how do you say cha-ching? Because at the end of the day, they're going to pay a lot of money to this family. Question is, will it be a verdict or will they settle this case? But, you know, this was a simple seatbelt stop. They put spikes under the tires so the car couldn't get away. They questioned the driver. They questioned the passenger. Then they asked the passenger for ID. He says, I don't have my license. As he reaches to grab a piece of paper, wants to hand it to the officer through the window. He doesn't want to roll the window down. They say, take the window down. He says, no, here, take my information. That's when they go crazy. So they say they felt that they were in fear. They felt that their lives were in fear because of his actions. Meanwhile, the driver is on the phone giving a play-by-play to the police. The 14-year-old daughter in the back seat is videotaping the incident. And had they had the technology of ImageKeeper going at this time, they would have had it documented, GPS coordinates, time, date, everything sent to a certified server. I mean, it's admissible evidence here. I don't know how you get around the taping of this thing. I don't know how you get around the conduct, tasing him. It's fortunate he didn't get shot.
You know, it is. But Avery, let me ask you that question. Look, we all saw what happened in Ferguson. Some people are saying, well, now that's intimidated police, and police are going to sort of, you know, hold back. You do not see the police holding back in this case, and they're suing the officers for malice, that they were aggressive, had no reasonable basis to question the passenger in the car. What is going on in these police officers' minds? Were they really at risk?
I think what's going on is you have a situation where you got too much coffee and you have too many donuts, because that's the only reasonable explanation for the behavior. And I got to tell you, Deb, I represent police officers, well, at least the good ones. You don't see this. Linda Mahone was on her way to the hospital because her mother was dying. And a good officer will actually recognize what's going on, not only stop it, but escort people to the hospital. I've seen it time and time again. This is way out of line. I don't agree with Richard on one thing. I don't think it's about cha-ching, cha-ching.
Well, no, but now it is. Now it is. I mean, I would agree that now the passengers in the car, you know, if it was and it appears. But Richard, what defense do the police officers have, given that this woman was on the phone with the police department saying, I don't want to get out of the car, I am afraid? What does it come down to?
That's not going to fly as a defense here. They have an obligation to listen to instructions by an officer of the law. And the fact that things have been happening in Ferguson and throughout the country are making headlines today, that doesn't give you a free pass to ignore a directive from a police officer. So they're going to be, I think what's going to happen is, as this case unfolds, you're going to hear that the police officers had a description of an individual that matched the description of the passenger, and that's why they took the extra steps to get information from him. They did not need a reasonable suspicion to ask him to get out of the car if they feared for their safety, and that's what we're hearing coming out of the police
All right, well, listen, we're going
to,
ultimately, it's the images of the videotape, and this videotape is actually very, very hard to watch. It's very hard to hear the screams of the children. It's very hard to hear this woman saying, I am afraid. Richard Herman, Avery Friedman, thank you.
Nice to see you. Take care.
You too.